Welcome to my live stream. Back to New Zealand, this is Fred Wheeler, and yes, we're going to talk about a topic that I probably should have done a long time ago, but today's the day. I sat down, actually I was working on something else and I didn't have time to finish it, so we wound up with the objectives video for today. I'm going to watch the ad like the rest of you, because apparently I am still required to watch an ad for my own live stream, which is peculiar. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is there's the start time included down in the description when YouTube publishes this video and I have time to include it. I'll do that for sure, don't worry, that happens. Now, if you need to leave the live stream and come back later on, what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to access it unless you have subscribed to my channel. You have hit the bell button and turned on all of your notifications so that I can actually, you'll get the feed from it. So that's the nature of my live streams, because they go unlisted. If you are a patron, you're going to get access to the live streams, not a problem. Later on, not an issue whatsoever, plus notes and so forth. I do an edited version of all of my live streams and all of the content that I make, but it will not include the Q&A or questions and answers or the feedback that the community gives me, which is normally done at the end of the live stream. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is I have a selection of images and panels that I will show you as I'm reading through my notes, and then when it's all finished, I'll come back to my face. So I basically show you some pictures, go through my notes, explain the whole thing, and then at the very end we'll come back to the webcam and we'll you can see my face and have a chat with me about whatever you want to ask, or provide some really useful advice. I know a lot of people have been doing that over time. Okay, so grab some food, drink, whatever you need to do to sort of make yourself comfortable, settle down, and let's talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, normally I talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but it doesn't necessarily have to be about Dungeons and Dragons 5e. The topic for today is combat encounters, objectives for Dungeons and Dragons. Now, as I said, it doesn't have to be Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but we're talking about combat encounter objectives, things you can do that sort of add to your combat, make them a little bit more interesting, and give you more of a focus rather than just trying to reduce hit points, which tends to be the case with a lot of Dungeons and Dragons combat. So as I said, combat doesn't have to just be about killing the enemy in battle, although that's fun, and certainly I would not exclude all those options, but you don't have to just do that. So here are a few objectives you can include in your battles. I have about 15 different objectives. Some are very similar, but I've tried to make sure almost all of them are different in some way, so you've got plenty to work with, lots of options to sort of play with as you're running through your game. So number one is you can make peace with the leader or members of a rival group. Now, this is the hardest objective to achieve. Making peace or having some sort of treaty take place is very, very difficult. Now, if it's taking place in the middle of a combat, it's very difficult. If it's taking place at the end of a combat, it's even more difficult. It's better if you're trying to make peace before the combat breaks out. Otherwise, it's just a bit hard. I think you'll find most dungeon masters, what will happen is they will make it more difficult to achieve that by setting a DC or difficulty class much higher than you can probably roll on your dice successfully, or there'll be motives that just can't be fulfilled because you've sort of made a mess of it. This really relies on players, if they do get into a battle, not killing the rivals, knocking them out rather than putting an arrow through their heart or blasting them with ranged magic so that there's nothing but ash left. So yeah, try not to kill them if you're going to try to make peace with them. Okay, number two is you can act as a bodyguard for an important individual or individuals. It could be more than one person. A good example is Lord of the Rings, Boromir protecting the hobbits as they are being assaulted by Uruk-hai. So a really simple objective and actually quite difficult to be successful with if your enemy has ranged attacks, because they can just pepper them with arrows or ranged spells if they want to and finish them off. So you've really got to make sure you're creating a shield between them or putting them in cover. Otherwise, as a bodyguard, you're not going to be doing a very good job. They're going to wind up with a whole bunch of bodies that you were supposed to be keeping alive. Okay, number 3 is you can protect an ancient, fragile, or very powerful talisman as it is being transported to a specific location. And the best example, probably all of you know about this, is Lord of the Rings, Frodo having to take the Ring of Power to Mordor, Mount Doom, drop it in there and destroy the thing. So this is yet again a very cliche trope that's used in Dungeons and Dragons, and of course it's been used in fiction quite a lot as well. Okay, number 4 is you can retrieve an important object or artifact from a dungeon environment. That might mean that you're going to go into the lair of a dragon and you have to find a special magical artifact that has healing properties and then take it back to, say, a king or a queen or a noble person or somebody who needs it, because this is the only thing that will heal them. So retrieving an important object is a fairly good objective, and you can place all of these in the middle of combat. They do not need to be outside of combat. You can make them part of the combat themselves. Number 5, what about sneaking into a fortified area without raising the general alarm? Now, of course, you might raise the alarm with a couple of individuals, but if you're quick and fast and do your job properly, you can put them out of their misery and pacify them and then move on through the fortified location. Of course, my example here is trying to sneak past an army of Modrons into Mechanis. Why not? That can't be very hard to do. Okay, number 6 is you can stop a magical ritual being performed, and that this ritual has dire consequences. So my example here is we've got the Red Wizards of Thay, and they are performing some sort of magical ritual, torturing this poor individual, and by doing so their soul will be sucked out and something else will happen to them that probably won't be very nice, and usually to do with undead stuff. So that's the concept, is stopping a ritual being performed. Very often used in Dungeons and Dragons. There's always like a ritual that needs to be performed, right? Number 7 is you can open a locked or sealed door. Now, by opening this locked or sealed door, you will allow access to a different location, which either allows for you to escape or move on, or close the doors behind you so you can put yourself in a safer position as you're being attacked by hordes of savages or something like that. Or maybe it will lead into a treasure trove with the right elements available to you to be successful in your battle. Not everything needs to be about killing the enemies, as I said. Okay, number 8. You're going to activate a machine or some sort of device or perform a ritual. Rather than stopping a ritual, you might be performing that ritual. And by doing so, you're going to stop the forces of darkness, those dark evil spirits entering your body and chewing your soul up and then spitting it out and using it as some sort of, excrement for their fun. Number 9, you can pull a lever that allows escape or completes a purpose. One of the most frustrating things for players to have to deal with in the middle of combat is traps. So if there's a lever on the other side of the room that requires them to travel down a passageway past a whole lot of enemies, or if there's a big pit they have to cross, or maybe there's a special mechanism that they need to open up in the side of the wall and then fiddle around with some tools to try to activate the lever. I mean, the lever doesn't need to be a big lever that you grab with your hand. It could be a lever that is activated and triggered by using small implements such as your thieves' tools. And of course, the combat's taking place with, say, some dungeon monsters, and there's traps being activated. You know, you're being scorched with fire and there's darts flying everywhere, making it a little bit more interesting. Number 10, you could close a dimensional portal. There's often let's close the dimensional portal because there's an estranged, power-hungry god who wants to escape and subdue everybody in the world and all the worlds and make everybody's life miserable. So that's another option you can put and include in your battle. Let's open a portal. We closed a portal. Let's open a magical portal. Why would we open this magical portal? It leads to the next area, which allows us to travel to an exotic or fantastical world. Or we're opening this portal because we need to make sure that the villagers who are being attacked by crazed orcs can't kill everybody. So let's get them through the portal to safety and then close the portal behind us. So another objective you can include in your battles. Number 11, let's capture the enemy leader, an important figure within the organization that you're currently battling. By doing so, by capturing them, then of course you don't have to worry about fighting everybody else, and if you do that, then you can then take them to the authorities, bring them to justice, or just have them tried in public and executed, because gosh, everybody likes a hanging, don't they? Number 12 is you could kill the enemy leader. You're fighting in a big battle and killing the enemy leader, that's the objective. Why do we want to do this? It's the old, if you cut off the head of the snake, then the body will wither and die. So in other words, if you kill the enemy leader, then the army goes into disarray and anarchy and is disbanded or runs away, and you don't have to worry about fighting thousands and thousands of troops. Number 13. You could secure an important military location or secure a sacred place. So an example is you might be battling for a significant military location such as a hill or a fort that is currently being taken or has been taken over by orcs or goblins or bugbears or whatever it is you want. Doesn't really matter. Maybe it's got giants in it. So you secure that location, and that gives you a significant advantage in combat in the following battles that you will have taking place. It might be part of just one battle amongst the entire war that's taking place. You can also think about, what about sacred locations such as a church, a chapel, a cathedral? Yep, the goblins, they've gotten a bit rowdy, they've come into town, they've all got torches, and they thought, well, let's just burn down the church. So now your job is to make sure the church doesn't burn down and fight off the goblins. So it's not just about kill the goblins, it's about put out fires, take out goblins, and try to find some way for it to rain. If anybody can produce rain, that's probably a good thing. Fire can't burn if there's rain, right? Okay, number 14, you could protect a fortified location such as a fort, a castle, from an army laying siege. Now the great thing about protecting a fortified castle is there's so many different things that players can do. So you're standing on the walls as the orcs are putting their ladders up against it and trying to clamber up there. Now you can knock the ladders off, you can knock off orcs off the ladders, you can drop stones or rocks on them as they're climbing up the walls, or if they're down on the ground. You can release the oil into the moat and then fire a flaming arrow into that moat, setting it on fire and burning your enemy. Or if they have a battering ram and they're trying to take down the front door, it's time to get out the scalding oil and pour it all the way over the top of them, set it alight and watch them burn to a crisp. So there's so many different things. Look, if they break a section of the wall away, you can then start using spells such as Wall of Force, Wall of Fire. You could create a stone wall of some kind to secure that location that's been broken into. Maybe if you have boulders being thrown into the castle from a catapult, you can put up a force wall to block them from actually doing any damage. Lots of different things you can do rather than just cast spells, shoot arrows, and swing your sword or weapon and try to hack your way through a bunch of orcs as they're raiding your castle. My last option here is for those of you who have to deal with dungeon masters who have decided to get really, really tough with you. And that is, your objective is now escape from an impossible, dangerous foe. That's right, the goblins are no longer a part and parcel of the situation. No, the dungeon master picked an enormous giant, which is far more powerful than you. There's no way you could possibly succeed in this battle. So now it's down to let's hide and then run away so we can fight another day. And that is an objective rather than trying to whittle away at the hit points of something you really can't do very much to simply because you are outclassed. I hope this was really useful to you. I think I have covered pretty much all the different types of objectives you could have in your combats. There might be more. If there are, put them down in the comments by all means. Share it with somebody else. I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters if you are interested in that sort of content regarding Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeons & Dragons 5e. You'll find I cover pretty much every topic if you are interested in those sorts of videos. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing content like this, well, guess what? I have a Patreon page. You get access to the notes that I create for my videos and the live stream, so you don't have to worry about having your subscribe button on, your bell button on, and notifications turned on. I also have a merchandise shelf where you can buy merch if you want to underneath all of my videos. Otherwise, just watch my videos. That's fine. That helps support the channel as well. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. So if you've got questions or feedback or something you want to add, this is the time to do that. I'm going to flick it over to my face and let's have a quick chat. Looks like the room's pretty quiet today, which is fine. I think this was a useful video. I feel like I should have done it a long time ago. Okay, are my glasses working better today than my eyes? Oh, they are. Oh, they are. Oh, here's a day where my eyes are actually working. Wow, amazing. How's it going, Overboard DM? Hi, Joe. Now, Overboard DM has a channel that does reviews and shows you and demonstrates lots of high-end miniatures from Gale Force 9 and various other locations. A lot of Dwarven Forge terrain, stuff like that. So if that's the sort of stuff you're interested in, I would suggest going and checking out his channel because he does quite a lot of content on that. Janshevik, I think I've got your name right. Now, I wanted to just quickly say that the video you had suggested on monster knowledge checks, I have started to write that. I thought it was a good idea because I did one for players but not for dungeon masters. So what I did was I started writing the notes and then I realized I could not complete it in 1 week. I could not get everything together in 1 week to give dungeon masters a good idea, like a dungeon master guide on how to deal with making monster knowledge checks. So as a result of that, what I did is I did this video because I felt like it was just like dumb luck. I was looking through a book and suddenly all these ideas sort of popped out of my head and I just spat them all down onto my phone, and that's what we got for today. Yeah, that's right, I'm streaming now. I normally stream on this day at the same time every week. It's only when I wind up having to work additional days or they change my roster around that I don't stream at 1 p.m. in New Zealand time, that is, on a Friday. Not wherever you are. In New Zealand, it's Friday. It's about 1:20 p.m. here, or 1:19 p.m. Okay. Okay, so what else we got here? You do have a good intuition. Prepared to cook and survive. How's it going, mate? Now, last week I managed to finish Fandelver. Oh, okay, good one. Although players want to kill Black Spider quite quickly. Well, I think that's always going to be the case. I think if your players come up against the big bad, they want to dispose of that big bad as quickly as possible before something else can take place. What's this here? Prepared to cook and survive. Now, if you have any questions, doesn't have to be about this topic. If you're a player, a dungeon master, I'll do my best to answer those questions. I suppose you could move into Storm King's Thunder, frankly, I don't like Storm King's Thunder very much. My reason for doing not liking it that much is that I just felt like we got bored with giants after a while. The whole group got bored with giants after a while. And I wasn't dungeon mastering. Somebody else was. I was just playing in the adventure. I do plan to do a player guide for the Lost Mine of... Not for the Lost Mine of Founder, a player guide for Storm King's Thunder. But I'm not going to be writing it from my perspective. I'm going to be writing the notes from the player's perspective, which is why sometimes people get a bit confused by my player guides, because they're usually from somebody else's perspective, not just my own. And so they think, well, you know, what's going on here? That's going to happen fairly shortly, in the next couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure. Marco, so what's going on today? We talked about different objectives or goals that you can include in your combat encounters. That was the topic for today. Yeah, I feel like the same way. I'm hoping that Dungeon of the Mad Mage will fare better, but that's going to be dependent on... Oh, that's right. As of tomorrow, I am back to dungeon mastering. For those of you, it's been about just over a year that I haven't been a dungeon master. I took a big rest, sort of a hiatus on that, and I've just been playing in somebody else's game. So, but my home group, we're going to start our session 0 as of tomorrow. We're going to talk about the campaign. I don't know exactly what I'm going to be running, so it'll be interesting. We're going to talk about character creation, some basic guidelines in terms of play, and we'll see where we go from there. But I'm hoping that we go with something that's a bit more broad and interesting for the players, because they get bored very easily. So yes, back to dungeon mastering, which means for those of you who have been hanging out and waiting for me to do a dungeon master guide on Dragon of Ice by a Peak, the chances are you will start getting some advice on how to do that after I have done it myself, because I haven't actually run the adventure yet. But I suspect that will be the first adventure we run, is the Dragon of Ice by a Peak. Okay, now Marcos, any tips for Dragon Heist, and how is Dungeon of the Mad Mage as a sequel? Truthfully, I have not run them, Marco, and because I haven't run Dragon Heist or Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I don't think I can give you advice on that. My feeling is that the layout of the book for Dragon Heist is pretty good. What concerns me about Dragon Heist is near the end there's a sequence of encounters, and it looks to me like you have to sort of do each encounter in order, and the order changes depending on the season, which is fine. But it does feel a little bit like a track, like a railway track that you're taking. So, you know, this thing happens and then you run to this location. So I'm not too sure about that in terms of how that will work. I have more hope for the Mad Mage. Dungeon of the Mad Mage, I feel like, is really broad. I think that'll be the adventure the players want to play in, because it's got lots of variety, and I can... Each level doesn't actually have to necessarily take place in a level below Undermountain. Do you know what I mean? They can essentially be completely different worlds, and I can put them somewhere else. And the route to getting to them is a portal. There's lots of portals there anyway. So I feel like that's going to be a better option. But I'll be taking a whole bunch of books with me tomorrow for my players to have a look at. Not so much inside, but sort of give them a rundown about what the adventure might be like, and to see what they want to play in. Yep, I'm going to do it. A player's guide to Storm King's Thunder. That'll happen. But as I said, that will be from a player's perspective, so that'll be my perspective and all of the other people I played at the table with. So all of the other people who were playing characters, I'm going to get them to tell me their advice in terms of what they found would be useful to have known before they started playing the game. I know the Dungeon Master would like to pipe in here, but I think it needs to be from a player's perspective rather than a Dungeon Master perspective. That can be a different video, and that's probably not the right thing for me to do because I didn't run Storm King's Thunder. I only did a couple of sessions as a stand-in for somebody else. Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Prepared to cook and survive, is that shortening the sequence of events or encounters in Dragon Heist might be necessary, or that not every single encounter needs to take place, and that there is an opportunity to have it cut short and just move to the very final climax. That would be my thoughts anyway. No. As it happens, I went through Dungeon Master burnout a while back, and I just put it all down and walked away from it. And most of the stuff that you're getting from me in terms of video content is past experience. So things I did in the past. There was plenty to talk about because I was running like 3 or 4 games at one point every week. So, which is mental because I had a full-time job as well. I don't ever recommend it, by the way. For any of you who think that it's a good idea to run 3 or 4 games a week and you've got a full-time job and you're traveling for a good hour or so back and forth from work, that's one way, hour there, hour back or more. It's a really stupid thing to do, and I'll never do it again. Sure, how's it going? Do you find the following along the Strahd campaign difficult as a player? Okay, so sure, I did a video, and you probably already watched it, a player's guide to the Curse of Strahd. Okay, I did and yes, it can be very hard to follow what's going on in the Curse of Strahd as the campaign unfolds. The issue should never be so much that I don't know what's going on, because the fundamental concept is you have to deal with Strahd. Okay? The players should always understand that. If your Dungeon Master hasn't been making that clear by whatever they're doing in terms of running the campaign, there's a problem there, because that is ultimately why you are in Barovia as a player. So you shouldn't be getting confused that the vampire needs to die, needs to be dealt with, because really it's the only way you can escape as well. So I don't want to say too much, but that's what you will find. It can be difficult to follow, but that particular thread should not be, because there's lots of different little side quests in the Curse of Strahd, okay, and they can sort of throw you for a bit of a spin sometimes, but the overall thread is Strahd must die, okay, as a player. Hopefully that answered your question, Shaw. What else have we got here? After all, it's the player's guide. Makes sense making it for the player's perspective. Exactly. Which means I have to be careful about what I say without giving away spoilers. Because, as you know, a lot of the Dungeon Master guides for the Lost Mine of Phandelver, the Curse of Strahd, Dragon of Icespire Peak, and so forth, all of those sorts of Dungeon Master guides really aren't suitable for players if they're playing in the game, right? So there needs to be something for the players that hasn't got spoilers in it, and that will still give them useful information. I will say this, for those of you who will always ask, I always get somebody who asks me with the player guides, with regard to the pre-made adventures, is why don't you tell me what's the best background, race, or classes to play, or archetypes? And I'll tell you now, for those of you who are players, it's a whole lot of bollocks, okay? Because I haven't played in any campaign where there has been really a huge advantage by going a particular way. I've seen players who can take something that doesn't seem to make sense. You look at it and you think, well, that can't make sense. How can they play that character in that campaign? It really comes down to players. Players can make the difference between a race, a class, a background working in any campaign. It does not matter what it is. So yes, I will comment about that, but it will probably be the same thing I always say now, and that is race, class, and background and feats frankly don't really matter when you're playing in any kind of pre-made adventure or any campaign whatsoever. It's really down to how you play that character, because your character is not just the sum of mechanical aspects on the character sheet, which is why those Dungeons and Dragons adventuring gear videos, that's why I make them, so that people understand that. Which is the newest official published adventure you played, at least as a player? As a player, the last one I just played in was Storm King's Thunder. After that, we played in a Dungeons and Dragons Adventurers League collection of adventures that were strung together, and I found that was very, very similar to the Storm King's Thunder in terms of its nature. And so I know one of the things the players are saying is, we don't want more giants in any campaign. We're sick and tired of giants. So that'll be feedback I will be taking on board tomorrow. Prepared to cook and survive. Play whatever you want. Class, race is irrelevant as long as you have fun. Yeah, exactly. But when people ask those sorts of questions, they're asking that question because they think that information will give them an advantage in combat. But Dungeons and Dragons, although there's a lot of combat and it depends on what sort of dungeon master you have and what sort of adventure, there are other aspects to the game. So don't get too focused on those sorts of things, because it's not necessarily super important. But it seems to be the stuff that people want to ask about sometimes. So I will mention it, but it won't be the answer people were expecting. Yeah, so that's the plan. I'm going to take off and go and do some other stuff. There doesn't seem to be too much feedback today. I'm hoping that this video is useful to dungeon masters who want to sort of make their combats more interesting. For those of you who are running pre-made adventures and you've got a combat laid out already. Hi John, how's it going? You're welcome, by the way. If you've got a pre-made adventure with a combat already laid out, I want you to sort of look at those 15 ideas that I talked about in terms of objectives and goals in the combat, and see if you can include one of them into that combat. Now, you do not need to do that with every single combat, but if you have a centerpiece, a particular encounter that you really want to stand out, this is a good way of doing it, is by including something outside of just kill all the monsters. Okay. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your neighbours if they are behaving themselves. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.